Welcome to Focus 54, the show that takes you throughout the African continent with the real feel of issues from the region. My name is Jeffrey Muribechi, and thank you so much to our online community for contributing to our Facebook page, that is ZBC News Online. And we're also now available on WhatsApp, on a WhatsApp channel. Just search for ZBC News Online, and you can get all of the latest updates from all of our news desks and some of our videos and pictures that we do post online. Now, this week's focus is on a landmark legal battle between South Africa and Israel in hindsight of the ongoing conflict in Gaza. And I was privy to watch South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor, and a bold stance on the matter, among others, including their lawyers. And it is a very, very complex issue, which our two guests will be joining us in the next two segments to break it down and make it simpler. But we take you through the top stories that are making headlines in Africa, and we start off with the issue of resources, as always. And Africa finds itself at the crossroads of a significant transformation of the global gold trade. Now, the relocation of Russian gold trading to Hong Kong, strategic alliances such as Mali and Russia's gold refinery agreement, and the surge of gold prices are reshaping the continent's role in a very crucial industry. Now, there will be a geopolitical shift with a direct impact on strategic alliances and local dynamics that will reshape the gold trade. Now, adapting to these changes will be crucial for continued resilience and growth of the gold industry in Africa and on a global scale. We take a look at some agriculture, and agriculture plays a role in climate change, and this is a statement from the United Nations FAO. Now, in the face of rising global temperatures, experts are highlighting the role of agriculture in climate action while ensuring global food security. Now, this comes as 2023 was confirmed to be the warmest year on record. In December, nations struck a historic deal at the COP28 climate summit in Dubai to transition from the global economy away from the fossil fuels to a green economy. Now, the summit declaration on agriculture, food and climate received endorsements from 137 countries, with $3.5 billion announced to replenish the Green Climate Fund. I don't know if that will be enough and if all players will be a part of this. Now we touch down to Nigeria, where, according to the Nigerian government, the country's Africa's biggest gold refinery has begun production in Nigeria, ending a year-long wait for a plant that analysts say that could boast refining capacity of the regions, which is heavily reliant on imported petroleum products. And finally, the thing that is topping all charts and topping all social media is the African Cup of Nations, which is ongoing in the Ivory Coast. You can give us your predictions as we give you live football matches on ZBC TV. Stay tuned for more. The second segment of Focus 54 is coming up right after this. Welcome back to Focus 54, and we are joined in studio by two amazing guests. RUMBIDZAI VENGE, who is a lawyer and a well-known broadcaster as well. And we have Vusimuzi Mjonjo, who is an international relations expert, to help us dissect the court case between South Africa and Israel in an African perspective and as well as a global perspective. Good to have both of you in studio.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
A very contentious issue that we are discussing here, and we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this issue. But what is the ICJ, and what is its role, especially with such conflicts in the world?
The ICJ stands for the International Court of Justice, Jeff, and you want to look at this as the pinnacle of human rights defense. It's often called the World Court, housed at The Hague in the Netherlands. And ultimately, the big task for the International Court of Justice is to look into issues around human rights and, preventing genocide and ensuring that member states and nations are living and interacting together and promoting human rights at the highest point. So you'd find that, historically, there are certain cases that have happened in the world. In 1948 is actually when the Genocide Convention was entered into and adopted by about 153 member states, countries, to ensure that we do not have any repeats of horrific and horrendous genocides and horrendous crimes against humanity that have occurred, starting from, the Nazis. There's, that you look at the Bosnia conflict most recently, Gambia-Russia conflict, the Gambia-Myanmar conflict, I beg your pardon.
Rwanda as well?
Rwanda as well, the Rwanda genocide, very topical. But this is what this special body was created for, to say at a world level, almost like prefects, that we want to ensure that the world is running peacefully and that human rights are absolute.
Now that's the legal perspective. Vusi, every news station that you open has something to do with this conflict. South Africa voices itself now. Is this the right timing for South Africa to be on such a stage?
Thank you, Jeff, for that question. What I think, the ICJ is the legal body of the UN. And South Africa and Palestine are both member states of the UN. So for South Africa going to the UN on the side of Palestine, I think South Africa is just going the, number one, as a member state, trying to protect the interests of another member state. Number two, South Africa has a long history of working together with Palestine since the time of the apartheid. So I think South Africa is coming in solidarity with Palestine. That's what I think.
Now, I've got a bombshell of a question. We did discuss in the first episode of Focus 54 2024 that this is an election year for a lot of African countries, and South Africa's election is coming very soon. Is this not seeking political clout, taking on one of the world's big bodies at such a public forum right now? Are they not seeking political clout?
I look at that, Jeff, in two ways. I mean, first and foremost, the one thing about South Africa is that South Africa itself was a victim of apartheid. South Africa itself went through many atrocities and also got assistance from this court at this level. Nelson Mandela is, the trailblazer when it comes to bringing people together, the Rainbow Nation. And I feel that looking at it from that standpoint, that they felt very, very obliged to push forward as former victims themselves. So I think we cannot deny that going forward. If not South Africa, then who else has experienced the atrocities that they're trying to address at that particular level? But you bring about a very important point as well, that there is a political complexion to this issue that cannot be denied. And one will wonder that, is this not going to be a big tick in the box politically moving forward with the elections coming on board?
Why I do say so is because one of the ANC members, who's also the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor, came out, and I will, just not quote her verbatim, but to say we cannot be pushed around by some nations when it comes to us defending justice and things like that. Why didn't, this minister and the government of South Africa at such stages bring out other issues outside the Israeli conflict?
You see what, Jeff? The Israeli-Gaza war has been going on for a long time now. And they needed someone to just stand and say, we need a stop to this. Because if the war doesn't stop in Gaza, then it means it's spread to elsewhere. So they needed someone in the country, a member state, to stand and say, let's stop this, so that we stop the further manipulation of other states by the bigger states.
Now, Ruby, you did mention that there are legal remedies and parameters and definitions in terms of how international law is handled. According to the ICJ or international law, at what point in time do we say this is genocide?
You look at it from an intent perspective, which is what is the offending nation doing and what is their intention. And the powers that the ICJ has extend, first of all, from actual genocide, which is when you look at acts that are going to kill an entire nation, where you deny medical help, where you're stopping births, where you're also effectively stopping people even from transcending borders. And in this case, what South Africa has done is they've not gone into the merits of what Israel is accused of having done in terms of acts of genocide. They are asking for provisional measures. And legally speaking, we use a term called prima facie, which means on the face of it. And this is what South Africa is relying on to say, on the face of it, the provisional measures that we want the International Court of Justice to implement are showing that so far out of the I think it's the death toll is quite scary, stands now at over 20,000, and then over 60,000 who have been injured, buried under rubble, cannot be found, 70% of whom are women and children. So this is their prayer and their contention to say, on the face of it, there is an intention to commit genocide. And according to the rules of the International Court of Justice, at this point, that should be enough for the provisional measures that they're asking for.
Now, Vusi, I know, you and I can understand a little bit more about the whole media side of things, but why does it only seem as if Israel is being accused as the transgressor? Are there no victims in Israel? And why is the world quiet about Israeli victims as well?
You are right there. I think we should also mention about, because Israel came into Gaza because they've been threatened on the 7th of October by the Hamas militants who went to bomb in...
So it means Israeli women and children and their citizens were also killed.
They were also killed. Yes. They are retaliating towards the actions that were done before. But let's look at the extent of the damage that they are causing now against against Gaza. It can't be compared to what happened in Israel.
Now, so what's the international body that measures this? Because it seems biased. Look, even as a reporter, as a journalist, I would not dare right now to go on either side to evaluate who's done more damage. Is there a body or is there a standard barometer to say that one has committed more offenses than the other?
Perhaps I could come in there, Jeff. I mean, I want to also just underscore that the C in the ICJ is that it's a court.
Okay.
And in a court, the accused person has a right to defend themselves. The accused has a right to stand forward and put forward their side of the story, and Israel has done so. You will notice that oral hearings were held on the 11th and 12th of January, and in response, Israel has actually said, we are only responding to military threat. We are not attacking civilians. We are not bombing or going after women and children. We are going after trained, skilled military personnel who are trained in the art of war. And this has been their response and what they've put on record. And I think it's important to also underscore that before we ourselves become judge, jury, and executioner, there have been deaths on both sides. And my perspective is that death is wrong, and that this war must come to an end, and that we don't want to see any bodies dropping on either side.
I like that we've managed to actually sum up or find out the legal definitions, the rules behind, and the backstory or the foreword regarding this court case that is up. This wraps up the second segment of Focus 54. When we come back, we start questioning why the rest of Africa is quiet and where we're going from this. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back to Focus 54, the third segment, and we are talking about South Africa's case against Israel regarding the issues that are surrounding the conflict in Gaza. Now, with the ICJ in process, there is a lot that we have discussed, the definitions, and thanks to our two lovely guests who are in studio, we get to dissect and understand this at a very intellectual and a layman's level. And we did talk about the role of the ICJ, the fact that there's a genocide convention, we've got a lot of member states. Africa has 54 nations. One has stood out and is the most topical at the moment. Why is everyone else quiet?
Well, I wouldn't say everyone else is quiet, but notably, I mean, Namibia is one of the only other African nations that I have tracked and seen that have openly come out and said, we are behind South Africa in this petition. Outside of, Africa, you look at Bangladesh also being very open and saying, listen, we're behind. But in their own rights, the member states have been communicating and saying, we support what South Africa is doing. Aluta, continue, go on. You represent all of us.
But that's behind the scenes, yes?
Yeah, this is true. This is true, and it's quite glaring. And I fear that a lot of African countries are riding on caution and don't really want to come out and have a position on this, because there are also some other implications, trade, history that goes behind it.
So let's bundle them together. And I want to throw this one to Vusi. As the African Union, South Africa is a member state. What is the position on the African Union, and what are the discussions that the African Union should be having? Because in war or in any conflict, if you don't pick a side, you have a side will be picked for you. So what is the position of the AU?
So far, the African Union hasn't said anything. They haven't offered a statement to say this is our position. Because South Africa, yes, it's a member state of the African Union, but it has its own sovereign rights to handle its international relations. So the African Union can't come then and say South Africa should do things this way. They have their own way of doing things, which relates with their diplomatic policies and their... Sorry.
So if we do that, I know it's a very tough one for you, and you had to take a breather there. I'll throw in maybe a Central African country. If it is to voice out its concerns, will it be able to go the whole distance as South Africa can?
I don't think so, Jeff. And the reason I'm so quick to answer there is because you must understand that the process, the legal processes are expensive to begin with. It was a significant investment on South Africa's part. I don't have the figures, but I can confirm that it was a significant investment.
The fact that you said international, I'm sure the figure is really quite up there.
Yeah.
Now, if we're going back to South Africa, and this one is another one I want to throw at Vusi and you as well. Twice last year in 2023, South Africans marched to the Israeli embassy in South Africa. And in addition to the fact that there has not been a South African embassy in Israel since 2018, this bold move, this bold legal move, will it not have trade and political effects or byproducts from after this, especially the fact that these two countries are still trading right now?
Definitely, Jeff. That is going to have a very big effect, especially on South Africa, as far as trade and politics is concerned. You can't have a country trading together, but you can't have consular services in the country that you're trading with. So I think this is going to have a very big effect on the part of South Africa. They will struggle to trade with Israel. And politically, they need relations with Israel.
What's your take on that?
I sort of feel like there's a principle to be underscored here, which is, as Martin Luther King said, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And I believe that this is a very deliberate move to put that principle forward. Even to say it's more important than trade and any other benefits that we would get, that there must be no genocide and there must be lines drawn. And it's a dicey one for South Africa, but I do believe that they have been bold enough to step forward, and that the idea is that the principle is more important than anything else.
The principle, I like how you say that. It sounds very diplomatic, but just before an election where all the politicians are coming out, even on TikTok to voice out their concerns. Now, this conflict is spreading in the region, and it appears that it's affecting other countries such as Yemen and Lebanon. Is there a near end to this, and what diplomatic and civil solutions can be made to make sure that this conflict ends?
In my understanding, I think the move that South Africa has taken to go to the ICJ, the ICJ should instruct those preliminary measures to be done so that the war in Gaza should stop. Because a war on Gaza, it's a war on every Islamic state. So if they don't stop a war on Gaza, then definitely every Islamic state which is being threatened, the war will continue. So the only noble move is to stop the war in Gaza.
What do you think about that?
You know, just dovetailing from Vusi's point there, then perhaps this would be a green light to say what South Africa has done is timely and is important. Because if the provisional measures are granted by the International Court of Justice, that will mean a ceasefire is ordered, and that will effectively stop the exchange of bullets and also the death toll between the two countries. That being said, though, the ICJ, whilst they can issue binding orders, don't really have powers to enforce them. So you might find that, you know, in the recently, or perhaps it's not even concluded, but it's been overshadowed, the Russia and Ukraine conflict, that there were some measures that were made there, but, you know, Russia simply chose not to obey. And the ICJ has no way of enforcement. So it then becomes a very, very, it's a catch-22 situation. It's a lacuna where measures have been given, but there's no way of enforcing them. And how do you then stop any other nations then who decide for whatever reason to start up again?
Now, as a parting shot, this is a legal battle. There will be a winner and a loser in this one. In the event that South Africa does not win this case, what will be the international, the geopolitical, you know, effects or afterwards? I'll throw this one to Vusi.
As for South Africa, it's a catch for them. They have to win this one. If they don't win, then it means the war that they've started, because Israel is not just coming as Israel. Israel is being funded weapons, it's being funded money.
It has allies and partners.
It has allies and partners. So definitely, if South Africa doesn't win on this case, then it means they started a war with people, with the countries which are backing Israel. So it's a catch-26 for South Africa.
Rumbi, you said these legal battles are quite expensive.
Yeah.
Looking at a country whose economy is not battling as such, but they have issues of power, they have issue of youth empowerment and things like that ahead of an election, and this doesn't go right, and they'll have spent millions and, you know, astronomical figures. What will that mean politically for them back home?
It's definitely going to be it's definitely going to be quite difficult, I think, economically, as you rightfully say. Also in terms of policy, what happens to the supporters of political systems within that country as well, a lack of confidence, misdirection, misappropriation. Those are some of the terms that we may see being thrown back and forth. And also, there's a feeling that there are other issues, bigger issues that could have been handled before this, African issues, South African issues that perhaps could have taken center stage. So it might leave a bad taste in the mouth if it definitely goes wrong. But the lines are drawn, and there's no going back because, you know, allegiance has been taken, and I guess we have to wait and see what happens thereafter. But once you've taken a bold move, you've got to stick it through. I know there's a famous Shona adage, I won't go into it, but you know what it says about boldness, and once you've taken a path, you've got to see it through to the end.
Yes, and that concludes Focus 54, the second edition. Very inconclusive, I must say, because this is an ongoing matter. And if you have an opinion and if you've got comments on this show, please do be part of our digital platforms, our digital community. We are on Facebook, that's ZBC News Online. You can send your comments. We will go through every single one of them, and if there's a need to touch more on this matter, we will do that. But thank you so much to our two lovely guests, Vusi and Ruby, who will give us their legal and international relations perspectives towards this. And we hope that as Africans we do learn, but out of all things, war is terrible, and we always strive for peace. So my name is Jeffrey Murimbechi. Catch me on the next episode.